What I'm going to talk about today are homemade Conibear supports. If you've seen some of my other videos, you'll know that being a prepper, I'm very big on being able to make what you need yourself rather than relying on store-bought materials, because number one, store-bought materials are going to be more expensive than something that you can make yourself, and also there may come a time when there are no store-bought materials to be had, or perhaps you can't afford to buy them, so you need to be able to make your equipment yourself. And this year I'm going to be doing some mink trapping, and as a result I'm going to be using 110 Conibears, and there are a number of store-bought Conibear supports that you can use with 110s. Specifically, I'm going to be mounting my 110s to either boards or bricks to be used on blind sets and undercut banks. Now, you can buy store-bought Conibear supports for about $1 a piece and fasten them to a brick or to a board. There's nothing wrong with that. They work great. They work with different size Conibears. But today we're going to take a look at two ways that you can make a 110 support yourself. We're going to do it two different ways. We're going to use nails for one, and we're going to use common wall ties for another. So let's get started. The first thing we're going to need is a common paving brick or landscaping brick. I buy these at Walmart for 68 cents a piece, or you can scrounge them from job sites or leftover projects or what have you. The next thing we're going to need is a masonry bit so we can drill some holes in the brick. The first thing I've done is I've drilled a hole in the lower left-hand corner of the brick right here. The purpose of this hole is simply to tie your trap off to the brick so that if you catch a mink or a muskrat, they're not going to run off with your trap. They can't pull it away. Now the next thing we want to do is drill 4 holes. These are going to be for the nails that we're going to use to support our trap. In order to get the holes in the right place, I simply make a little template like this, just a piece of scrap wood or paneling, and I drill 4 holes in it, and this way I know exactly where to drill the holes for my nails. You want to end up with something that looks like this. Basically, by this time your brick has 5 holes in it. It has a larger hole in the lower left-hand corner that's used to tie off your trap, and then you've got 4 smaller holes that you're going to use to insert your nails in. Now here's the important part. Now that we've got our 4 holes drilled, what I do is I take a drop of Gorilla Glue and drop it into each one of the 4 nail holes, and then stick a 2-inch roofing tack into the hole. I let it sit overnight so that everything hardens up, and if any of the glue foams or bubbles up out of the hole, that's fine. Just take some pliers and pull it off, or take your fingers and pull it off. But the bottom line is this is what you're going to end up with. You're going to end up with a brick that has a hole for the trap to be wired off, and you're going to have 4 nails that are epoxied into these holes, and this is a rock solid support for your. So here's the final result. Now we've got our 110 mounted to the brick. It's very steady. You can mount it vertically if you want, like this. It's not going to come loose. It serves as a drowning weight. It's very steady in the water. It's not going to get knocked over very easily. And the most important thing is you made it out of common materials that you can scrounge around the home or anywhere. Basically all it takes is a drill bit, some roofing tacks, and a brick or a rock or something. Now the next thing I'm going to show you is how to make a Conibear support out of a wall tie. Now, these wall ties are very cheap. You can buy them. I think I paid $10 for a 100 pack. You can get them at Home Depot or Lowe's or places like that, or you can find them discarded at job sites or what have you. But basically, I'm going to use 1 wall tie to make 2 separate Conibear supports. So when you do the math, these things are going to come out to about 5 cents a piece to make, which is very, very cheap when you consider that your average store-bought Conibear support is going to cost you $1. Now these aren't quite as nice. They're not as flexible and as functional as the store-bought ones, but when you consider that you can make them for a nickel a piece, it's not a bad deal. So let's get started. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to take a pair of bolt cutters, and we're going to cut the wall tie directly in half. You can see that I've cut it right in between the 2 center marks. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is put our wall tie in a vise, and we're going to bend it a couple of times to support our Conibear. You're going to make 2 bends on each side of the wall tie, and this is shown here by the black lines. Now these are approximate locations of the bends. You're going to have to fool around with it yourself depending upon which type of Conibear you're using and which notch you usually set it in. But what you want to do is you want to bend it to where you end up with something that looks like this. Now you can see this doesn't have to be perfect, but basically what we're going to do is we're going to nail this to a tree or a limb or a board or what have you, and all it has to do is allow the jaw of the body grip to come underneath the lip, and the wall tie is going to have enough spring in it to hold it in place. Now here's what it looks like when it's actually mounted. You can see I've got 2 nail holes. I've driven a couple of roofing tacks through the nail holes into a 2x4, and then I've set the body grip where the jaws are up under the lips of the wall tie. Now the lips don't have to fit tightly, and in fact they shouldn't fit tightly as shown in this picture here. The wall tie itself is going to have enough spring in it that's what's going to hold the trap tight. You want to make sure you have enough clearance between the lip of the trap and your jaws so that when it fires it doesn't impede the firing of the trap. So anyway, this is 2 different ways that you can make a homemade Conibear support. You can make them out of a brick and some roofing tacks, or you can make them out of a wall tie and nail them to a tree or a limb or what have you. The ones with the bricks I'm going to be using for mink trapping, and the ones that I make out of wall ties, I'm going to nail those to trees and branches, and I'm going to use those with 110s for squirrels. So you can see each has its own place. Now that we're finished here in the shop, let's go out and take a walk, and I'll show you a little creek near my house where I'm going to be using some of these to catch mink and squirrel. I hope you enjoyed. This is a little stream that I'm going to be trapping come trapping season. I'm going to be setting up for mink and raccoon here on this little stream. And what I've done is I've gone out and not only done my scouting, but I've started to pre-make some of my sets, if you will. Not sort of pre-bait them, but sort of pre-make them. And one of the things on this little stream is this series of culverts here. What, are you ready to keep running? Well, you're just going to have to wait a few minutes. What we have is 4 culverts here, and you can see that I've placed some large rocks in the culverts to sort of block them down, neck them down. Well, the other night we had a lot of rain come through here, and there's this place always floods. It's a lot of water coming through these culverts, and you can see that some of my smaller blocks actually got washed away. And so this is just something to keep in mind. Now is the time to go out and start creating some of your set locations and some of your habitats. But keep in mind that a lot can happen between now and trapping season, so you need to keep an eye on them and figure out what's going on. So I've learned a good lesson here that if I'm gonna block off some of these areas, I need to use some big heavy rocks and not something that's just gonna get washed away the first time the rain comes. Otherwise, I'm gonna be doing the work several times instead of once. Another thing on these culverts that's really nice is you can see some of the concrete's worn away, exposing the reinforcing bar. And this is going to be a really good place to tie off. So you could either tie your traps off to the block if you put them on a block, or you can just clip them on right here and be done with it. And you can see the next one has the same thing right here. So anyway, I think this is going to be a nice little stream. I've got about 2 miles of this stream that I'll walk on a regular basis, and I'm going to be setting it up heavily. So hopefully I'll have some luck this year on this place.